Okay, so let us consider optical absorption first. Now, optical absorption is a technique to measure the band gap energy. How? Let's say this is your band gap Eg, and if I bombard it with photon whose energy is less than the band gap, what will happen? This energy is insufficient to excite the electrons from the valence band to conduction band, right? So that means what will happen? This photon will not be absorbed, it will pass by. Correct? If I increase the energy more than the band gap, then this photon can be absorbed. Correct? So that means if I take a piece of semiconductor of length L and if I incident a light on it, which frequency nu or wavelength lambda, its transmission will depend on the energy of the photon that I'm um, that is incident on this one. Now let's assume I naught is the intensity of photons per square centimeter per second. Lambda is the photon wavelength. Now, if you have a source, you can select using monochromator which wavelength will pass through. You have seen simple prism, right? Which uh, uh, split the visible light into different colors, right? So these different colors are basically different wavelengths. Now L is the thickness of this sample, right? So if sample is thick, of course there will be more absorption and transmission will be less. Now, if I is the intensity, and we also define that alpha is the absorption coefficient. So at given point of time, at any cross section of this semiconductor, the intensity will drop with the length x, right? As we move, as the this radiation is moving, its energy will reduce because alpha is the absorption coefficient. So alpha times I will be the absorption, right? So you can write di by dx is alpha times I. There is a negative signs because it's absorption, right? So it is increasing. So let's say you have this piece of semiconductor. You move distance, let's say this is I, and at distance x, it will be I minus delta I, right? So delta I is basically minus alpha times I times delta x, right? So delta I is proportional to I times alpha delta x. So I is the intensity. So absorption depends on the intensity, and a fraction of that intensity will be absorbed, and that will be alpha dx, because alpha is absorption coefficient per centimeter. Alpha is absorption coefficient per centimeter. So absorption will be alpha dx, right? Times the intensity. So you can write di by dx is minus alpha times I. Now if you integrate it from 0 to any length L or any length x, you can write I will be I naught e to the power minus alpha x. So if the length is L, then the transmitted intensity will be. Som Chaudhary, do you have any question? Som Chaudhary.
No, sir. No, sir.
Then please keep your mic mute. If somebody unmute his mic in between, I will remove him from the class. Please cooperate. So the transmitted intensity will be I naught e to the power minus alpha times L. And that intensity is detected by the detector. So let me do one thing here. Okay, so this is basically how the um, absorption curve will look like. So for a given photon energy, right? Uh, if the photon energy is less than the band gap, absorption is negligible. As it move to the close to the band gap, absorption increases, and for energy more than the band gap, absorption is basically higher, right? So you can basically plot now this curve will basically, if you see here, this is a typical curve, right? Sometimes it may not be so sharp. For some cases, the curve may be more gradual, right? So this is due to the difference in the materials. Now where the curve is sharp, they are basically called direct band gap, right? Where curve is gradual, they are called indirect band gap. Please remember this term, and we will discuss more about these two types of semiconductor in coming slides. So direct band gap are basically those semiconductor where conduction band value and the valence band value, they are at the same k vector. Indirect band gap semiconductors are those where conduction band value and the valence band value, they are separated in k space wave vector. They occur at different wave vector that we have seen in EK diagram. For example, in silicon, right? It's an indirect band gap. Gallium arsenide is a direct band gap. Okay, so go to the next slide. Luminescence, right? Now, once a material absorbs a photon, right? By absorbing the photon, it has created electron-hole pair, right? Now, this electron-hole pair, these excess electron-hole pair, they will recombine and they can give out the light, right? And that process is called luminescence. So the generated carriers, right? When they recombine, they produce light, and that is called luminescence, right? Now these generated carriers can come from different mechanisms. If these generated carriers are coming from photon absorption, the process is called photoluminescence. Now depending on for how long it takes for the carriers to recombine, right? It has some subgroups, right? Called fluorescence and phosphorescence. So fluorescence is basically is a fast process. So typically, order of few tens of nanosecond it takes, and in that all the extra carriers will recombine. But due to some reason, if these carriers are trapped and they are not able to recombine so fast, right? That process is called phosphorescence, right? That means process is long. It takes second to minutes, right? And this happens when there are trap levels are there, right? So that these electron holes are trapped, right? And then those trap have some lifetime, so it takes some time to take those carriers out and recombine. And such materials are called phosphors, right? Another mechanism, if the carriers are generated by high energy electron bombardment, right? That is called cathodoluminescence. So you bombard a material with high energy electrons, and then you leave it. It will produce some photons, and that is called cathodoluminescence. Another is when you can inject current. So you take a PN junction, you inject current, and if they recombine, they can produce light, such as in LEDs, and that is called electroluminescence. Now here it may be important for you to understand that you have seen LED bulbs, you have seen tube lights, right? They basically deal with some kind of luminescence. But if you see the traditional bulb, right? They are called incandescence radiation, right? That is basically different mechanism. there we actually heat the filament in bulb, right? If you recall the bulb, right? There's a filament here which is heated, right? And that heated filament will give out the radiation, right? So it is different from the luminescence. Luminescence is typically, is a cold process. It doesn't need to be that hot. That's why your LED bulbs don't get so hot, right? So, but in luminescence, this filament is heated and then it radiates. So that is basically some kind of you can draw similarity like black body radiation type of thing, right? It radiates based on the heat. Higher the temperature, higher is the wavelength. Sorry, lower is the wavelength, higher is the energy. Correct? So this is basically the luminescence process. Now we discussed about the direct indirect band gap, right? So how do they play this role? Whether can we see the luminescence in direct band gap? Can we see it in indirect band gap? How actually this luminescence takes place, or for that matter, how the absorption of photon takes place, right? So that depends on the EK diagram, right? And if you look at the properties of this recombination generation process, so in these processes, momentum and energy, they are conserved. So when we talk of momentum, we are actually talking about the crystal momentum. Of course, individual momentums are conserved, but this crystal momentum and energy, they are also conserved. So if you have some band-to-band recombination, right, then that is usually much faster in direct gap, because you don't need any other particle phonon, right? This electron and this electron hole pair and photon can take care. In case of trap assisted recombination or recombination generation center based process, um, that is usually dominant in indirect gap semiconductors. Now, is it that in direct band gap only band to band recombination will take place, and in indirect band gap only the trap assisted recombination will take place? No, all the processes are possible in all the semiconductors, but the dominant process is actually matters. So on that process we focus because there's a dominant mechanism, right? So band to band recombination is dominant in direct gap, and trap assisted recombination is dominant in indirect gap semiconductor. And if you have let's say some low field region or non-degenerate means low doped semiconductors, right? These two processes will dominate. But if you increase the doping and you apply, you inject high carrier concentration, then other processes like Auger, they will play a role. They will come into the picture. So on right side, you can see this is basically a trap level, and electron is coming from the conduction band from to the trap, and from trap to the valence band, because trap energy level is something like this, right? So its energy is fixed, but it can have any k vector here. So for all the k vector energy is same. That is trap level. And for direct gap, these two band curvatures are at the same k vector. So they basically recombine without the help of any phonon. Okay. So here you also look at the momentum consideration. So you conserve the energy, right? So conservation of energy means if their electron holes are recombining, then the photon energy will be same as the band gap energy, right? That is a conservation of energy. Now conservation of momentum. Let's say this electron and hole are recombining, and they are giving out a photon, right? So then if their wave vectors are different, right, then that momentum has to be taken care of by the photon. So let us analyze what is the momentum of the photon and what is the momentum in lattice, right? So for the photon, k is 2 pi by lambda, right? Now nu c is equal to nu lambda, right? So it can also written as 2 pi nu by c, and nu can also written as h nu will be band gap, right? So h nu will be band gap. So if you write band gap by h, so h by 2 pi is h bar. So you can write this simple expression Eg by h bar c. And if you calculate for a typical band gap around 1.2, what you get delta k is around 6 per micrometer. So that is delta k is basically 6 into 10 raised to power 6 per meter. That is the momentum of photon. Now you compare this with the momentum of electrons in the crystal. So for electrons, we have this Brillouin zone, right? From plus pi by t to minus plus pi by a to minus pi by a. So these are the wave vectors basically, right? So it is basically order of pi by a. Now a is order of angstrom. What is the a for silicon? Around 5.43 angstrom, right? So that will be order of 10 raised to power 10, right? So this is 10 raised to power 10. This is 10 raised to power 6, right? So the momentum of electron is much larger than the momentum of photon. So if there is a indirect gap semiconductor, right, and for electron and hole to recombine, this momentum cannot be supplied by the photon. This momentum has to be supplied by the third particle, right? That is called phonon. So that means now this process is not just two particles, electron hole recombination and photon. No, it will involve another particle called phonon or lattice vibration. So this becomes inefficient. This process becomes inefficient. So that's why in such cases or indirect band gap semiconductor, this is usually a two-step process via trap level. Right? So this is further explained in the second slide. You can see here this is an indirect band gap semiconductor. Um, the the phonon delta k is order of 2 pi by a, right? So but the energy of phonon is very less. It's few tens of millivolt electron volt. So that means because see if phonon particle is involved, it will also contribute to the energy, right? So in this case, energy conservation equation will look like uh, Eg, the total energy that is released by electron hole combination, is equal to photon energy plus phonon energy, right? So that will be the total energy, right? And the momentum will be moment of electron will be momentum of phonon plus momentum of photon. Now here you can for energy part you can ignore the energy of phonon. For momentum part or delta k part, you can ignore the delta k of photon, right? So this is for photon, right? So you can see here how the transition take place. So this electron from the conduction it comes to the trap level, and from trap level it goes to the valence band. The process is called two-step process. Now these phonons, let me tell more about it. These phonons are basically lattice vibrations, right? So for silicon, um, these photons will have certain velocity of the vibration, right? So for silicon along 100 direction, right? Uh, the velocity is 8430 meter per second, right? So like we have c equal to f lambda, right? So similarly for phonons also we have v equal to their frequency times lambda, the wavelength. That wavelength is order of lattice constant. And then these phonons are basically different phonons. There is a longitudinal phonon, there's a transverse phonon. So these concepts are there, and they have different frequencies. So their energy is also different, right? So this data is taken from this reference. So but we don't have to go into the details of the phonon right now. If required, I will take it up later. But is one of the particle that takes part in case of um, carrier generation recombination when it is trap assisted, right? Now you can understand like this. Both the processes are possible. Direct recombination involving phonon, or indirect recombination involving again phonon and the trap level. But which will be more probable in indirect band gap? So in the indirect band gap, of course, this trap level will be more dominant. Why? You can understand situation like this. Let's say you have two resistors between uh, two terminals, right? One is, let's say, 1 ohm, other is 1 mega ohm, right? If current I is flowing, where most of the current will go? It will go through the 1 ohm, right? So similar way, if there are two possible mechanisms, one more mechanisms is more favorable and preferred, then that will be the dominant mechanism. Other mechanism will not be effective, right? So now here we have also discussed that what about photon generation. So for indirect band gap, photon generation is also inefficient, and it curve is something like this. It's not so sharp like a direct band gap, right? So again, photon can be generated by electron hole pair can be generated by the photon absorption in indirect band gap, but it is little sloppy, so it is less efficient. Now, when there is a generation taking place, whether in direct band gap or indirect band gap through photon, their carrier concentration increases, right? And when the carrier concentration increases, their conductivity will increase, right? And this phenomena is called photoconductivity. So these electron and holes that are created, they enhance the conductivity, right? And this enhanced conductivity is called photoconductivity. So now when these electron holes, extra electron holes are generated, right? So far we have discussed about the generation, mainly the generation part, right? Now, how do they recombine, right? Again, the recombination can be direct recombination or trap assisted recombination. So in this course, basically we will focus on two types of recombination only, the direct and the trap assisted recombination. So let us examine the direct recombination. So these these excess electron holes that are generated, they will recombine, right? Now this recombination is a spontaneous process, right? So by spontaneous process means that their recombination probability is constant, right? Is a constant depending on the carrier concentration, right? So if there are more electron, so each electron has the same probability of recombination. That we can understand. Each electron hole pair has the same probability of recombination. So if there are n number of electron hole pair, then probability will become n times. So you can write it as some coefficient times np, and where alpha r is a recombination coefficient. So recombination will be alpha r times n times p. Now, generation. The generation will be alpha r times ni square. How is that? Because at equilibrium, let's say at equilibrium dn by dt is 0. So your thermal generation, let's say this is G. So G you can write alpha r times np, and np is ni square, right? So this is generation is alpha r times ni square, right? So for a general expression, you can write dn by dt is generation minus recombination. So generation is constant at a given temperature, alpha r times ni square, and recombination is alpha r times the existing carrier concentration, right? Now we can define, let's say n naught is the equilibrium electron concentration, P naught is the equilibrium hole concentration, and N is N naught plus delta N. P is P naught plus delta P. So if we are generating these electron and holes through optical means, the number of electron holes that are generated will be equal, especially from the optical process, right? If you are injecting carriers, then of course you can have different delta N and delta P, right? So for general case, you can write dN by dt will be d by dt of N naught plus delta N. Now N naught is constant, so you can write dN by dt is d by dt of delta N, which is alpha r times Ni square minus alpha times N naught plus delta N, P naught plus delta P, right? So which you can simplify as minus alpha r times N naught plus P naught delta N plus delta N square. Now again we are writing here delta N because we are assuming photon based generation. So delta N and delta P are equal. Now if the concentration delta N is quite large, you will have to consider the whole equation. But this equation simplify if we consider low level injection. Now low level injection is defined as this delta N delta P is much less than the majority carrier concentration. So majority carrier concentration will be P naught for P type and N naught for N type semiconductor, right? So this will be the case for low level injection. So in low level injection, you can ignore this delta N square. You can simply write alpha r times N naught plus P naught delta N. Or you can further simplify. If it is P type, you can just keep P naught because N naught will be anyway very small. And if it is N type, you can keep N naught. P naught will be very small anyway. So let us see the solution. So now you can write delta N by delta T is minus alpha r times P naught delta T. Balakrishna Das, please keep your mic mute. So when we solve this equation, we will get delta N T will be you can write it as delta N at T equal to 0 times e to the power minus alpha r times P naught times T, right? Now delta N at T equal to 0, you can define as capital delta N. So it is basically something like you generate the carriers at T equal to 0, right? And then you leave, then you don't, you switch off the light, right? And then this excess carrier will decay as e to the power minus T by tau. Now, where tau will be 1 over alpha r P naught. And this is called minority carrier lifetime. See, there is a change in majority carrier also, right? But the majority carrier change is same as minority carrier change. But if you see the order of magnitude, let's say minority carrier is 10 raised to the power 4, majority carrier is 10 raised to the power 16, right? And if the change is 10 raised to the power 12, so this will basically remain all more or less constant. But this will decrease, right, with time. So this is e to the power minus T by tau. So this is tau is the minority carrier lifetime. So this is 1 over alpha times P naught or P type. And for N type, it will be 1 over alpha times N naught. You can write a more general expression. If you don't ignore the minority carrier concentration, you can also write more general will be alpha R times N naught plus P naught. This will be minority carrier lifetime. So this is basically you can see the setup here is a photoconductive decay measurement setup where you have a flash generator. You generate at time t equal to 0. You filter out the particular wavelength intensity. Then this sample will have certain conductivity. Then you apply a fixed voltage here, and if conductivity is more, more current will flow. So the drop will be more here, right? So that way you can measure the drop across the sample, right? And this will basically tell you the with time how the conduct. So as the time progresses, the carrier concentration carriers will recombine. So carrier concentration will decrease, and when carrier concentration decreases, their conductivity decreases, right? So resistance increases, and IR drop will also increase, right? So you will see some kind of curve here, and that will tell you about the myotic carrier concentration variation with time, right? So now let us also learn about the concept of quasi Fermi level, because we have defined that Fermi level in the equilibrium. Np is equal to Ni square, right? And they are Fermi level. Now, when there is a carrier generation or recombination, these extra carriers will increase the electron hole concentration, right? So your N will become N naught plus delta N, P will become P naught plus delta P. So from that, if you calculate if you write the expression for electron hole, right? This we have already seen, right? We can see the electron hole expression. So N is Ni times exponential EF minus EI by KT, right? So now here we used was EF, right? And similarly for P, we use EI minus EF by KT, right? Now because NP product is not Ni square now, so these two Fermi level will not be same. So what we say, we define this as EFN, and we define as EFP, or simply FN and FP. So from the carrier concentration, which is N naught plus delta N, which is P naught plus delta P, using this expression, you can calculate these two Fermi levels, right? And if you multiply these two, what will you get? NP product will be Ni square times exponential Fn minus Fp by Kt, right? So that means now product is not Ni square. It is basically Ni square times a factor with exponential Fn minus Fp by Kt. Fn minus Fp is the difference of two quasi Fermi levels. So in equilibrium, these two quasi Fermi levels are same. So therefore this factor becomes 1, right? Now in case of optical generation, can we calculate this delta N and delta P? Let's see. So at thermal equilibrium, thermal generation is alpha R times Ni square, recombination is alpha R times N naught P naught, and they are equal, right? If you turn on the light, then total generation will become thermal generation plus optical generation, and let's say electron hole concentration is Np. So this has to be equal to the recombination card alpha R times Np, and N and P we can write N naught plus delta N, P naught plus delta P. So if we equate these two, then your GT is basically alpha R times Ni square, right? So alpha R times N naught P naught is Ni square. So you remove that one, then G optical generation rate will become alpha R times N naught plus P naught times delta N plus delta N square. So again, this is for low level, for low level exercise. We are ignoring delta N, delta P product or delta N square. Now this you can write delta N by tau N, right? Where tau N will be alpha N times N naught plus P naught. The same expression we got for recombination in last slide. So your delta N is basically generation rate times myotic carrier lifetime. So these are excess carriers, right? And delta and delta P both are equal. Now in some cases, if there is a trapping there, these actual concentration of electron hole can be different. That also we will see in coming lecture. So, but for now, this is the expression. For optical generation, delta and delta B they are equal, and they are optical generation rate times tau n. And with this modified carrier concentration, you can calculate the separate Fermi level for electron and holes, and these Fermi levels are called quasi Fermi level. So we are closing today's lecture now. We will discuss indirect recombination in next class. So if you have any question, I will take up the questions now. So any question? Any question?